There's quite a few things that have been considered a bit controversial, and I'm supposed to be controversial for having embraced these concepts. The thing that I believe is that I'm the least controversial musician for the fact that a lot of these beliefs that I have are so logically entrenched in the procedures that one takes when one wants to be a good player, that it's always been kind of interesting to me that other musicians don't see this sometimes. So I'm going to discuss them a little more intimately. It's hard to demonstrate some of these concepts because, as I say, they're generally philosophies, but see if some of these points that I make will, see if they make sense to you and if they're helpful to you. There is, to begin, a concept people regard as important, which are chops building exercises. Chops building exercises, as best as I might define it, are exercises where you build your technique. Hand strength, for bass players especially, devices that one uses to squeeze and develop hand strength in order to be able to play faster is what my general understanding of chops building exercises are. Excuse me, and I'm here to say that I believe that these exercises are not going to get you what you want at all, because musicians do not play due to good chops. Musicians play due to equally good ideas and the technique to execute them. When they invented devices to squeeze hand grip type things, hand stretching devices I've heard about, finger spreading accoutrements of music. I think I saw an ad for that. And I began to think about how did musicians throughout music history play with great capability before these devices were ever created. And the answer is they played because they equally regarded music and their instrument and developed the capability to play technically fast by playing slowly and learning music through steps and through time. Musicians do not generally, in this modern day, want to take the time to learn how to play, is my philosophy. They want the results of it, and I understand that's quite attractive, but the actual reality of music is that music doesn't give back what you put into it. If you invest in the stock market, you're going to get a lot of money back, usually within 5 years or so. Music doesn't pay back like that. You'll put in a lot of music hours and a lot of practice hours, and your improvements are usually not noticeable because they're so slow. It's like hair growth. It's slow. You can't see when the time comes for a haircut, but there it is. So in music, chops building events aren't necessary because great bass playing, for example, has never relied upon great hand strength. In fact, the greater that hand strength, the more slowly you'll probably play. Great technique has always come through articulation and the articulation has always come through delicate touching of the instrument and precise note playing. That does not come through hand strength devices. These devices will probably slow you down and probably prevent you from getting what you want. So I would not develop my chops in artificial ways. It takes one set of muscles to close the hand, and I understand it takes an entirely different set to open them. So when you're exercising squeezing, you're ignoring one whole set of muscles. It's an inaccurate and might be harmful to the hand. Tendinitis develops. People do things to their hands to get good chops and often injure themselves. Don't do it. You want chops? Play an instrument. Play it carefully. Play it every day. Read music. Read notes. These things precisely tell you what to play. And that's how a musician develops chops. Do not put heavier strings on your instrument. Heavier strings will slow you down. You don't build up strength by challenging your strength. You build up the capability to play by playing on the lighter strings or the strings that you normally play and playing on it on a regular basis, just like musicians have proven. See, this is proven for 400 years. There's nothing controversial here. You don't, as a musician, artificially pump these devices up at the end of your arms. You use them in a melodic and in a musical way, and that's how musicians develop chops. And to verify that, everybody that you admire, bass player-wise, guitar player-wise, practically to a man, to a woman, have developed their capability without hand strengthening devices. And my final point on this particular area is how did musicians develop phenomenal speed and phenomenal playing capability before these devices were invented? These devices are modern day sales items. I don't object, of course, in our American society to make a sale and to make money, but I want you to recognize that as a musician, you don't need any of them. I'd like to talk about something that has put me in an area of great controversy. It is something that I found has really upset a lot of musicians. And the area is that I believe that a metronome will not give you good time at all. I'd like to see if I can explain it and make sense to you about this. A metronome is a click. Music is not about click time, and learning music has not been about equal time interpretation of rhythm. Learning music has been about playing and learning out of time. To begin, in academia, when you're learning an exercise, if I'm playing an exercise and I don't know the notes, I can't do that in time. Because eventually I'll be out of time and I won't be able to get a flow. Music has always been about learning it out of time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. See, it's about the subdivisional interpretation of these notes and taking the time to learn it. Why would anyone want to learn music that they don't know and play it in time? In fact, to simplify, you can't, I can't, John Richardson doing the camera work here can't. None of us can play anything that we don't know. You don't learn with a metronome because a metronome puts the click and the time before the information you have. How does one explain that the entire Latin community, just about, I mean there's always one exception and I don't know who that is, but just about the entire Latin music community, Central and South America, the entire continent of South America, how does one explain all these musicians playing in an agreed upon, organically agreed upon time feel with an organically agreed upon quarter note, and none of these musicians ever used a metronome to find that time within themselves? How does one explain this? How does one explain that the entire history of rock and roll, the entire history since 1950 up until today, is based upon a music and an agreed upon pulse, and none of these musicians ever used a metronome? No rock musician, just about, ever used a metronome to define the internal sense of time. How does one explain that? How does one explain the history of symphony orchestras where conductors subdivide music that is not 16th or 8th note music like Bach? Because people always use that click as an exercise type of music, but music is not always about that. Music is also about and if you have music that breathes, how does one explain that the whole symphony orchestra, the history of that, and all classical music, piano music, just about to a man, never used a metronome in order to play that music? Why are you encouraged to use it? Because we are in an era now where education of music is flawed. And this is the thing I think that gets me maybe into trouble with people, but I've never been too shy to say what I believe is the truth. How does one explain even the line dancing? What's that song that everyone does? You know, the chicken dance. How do all these people in a club all dance the same tempo and clap the same song? How does people go da 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 da? Here, John, do me a favor. I have a cameraman here, and we did not work this out. Clap your hands if you know this tune, okay? Da 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 da. 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 Okay. Now, it's a funny demo, but John Richardson, this fine gentleman behind the camera here, I just pulled him into the video without any planning, And how did John know exactly how to clap that song with me?